Hey fellow thinkers, today we're going to be theory crafting about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Massive story spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk. Cloud has always been the centerpiece of Final Fantasy VII, and he is, if not one of the most recognizable Final Fantasy characters. But, what if I told you that Rebirth changes how we look at Cloud and why he might no longer be the hero of this story? Throughout the original game and through Final Fantasy VII Remake, we were always experiencing the game through Cloud's perspective. However, the ending of Rebirth has shifted away from Cloud's view of the world as he now suffers from dissociative disorder, as his mind has been fractured from Sephiroth's actions as well as him ultimately failing to save Aerith and the mental toll that it has taken. We can observe throughout the game multiple instances of Cloud becoming a less and less reliable narrator, with him hallucinating and misremembering various events such as Tifa surviving the attack from Sephiroth in Nibelheim, while even showing Cloud the scar to prove it, as well as him just copying all of Zack's memories and passing them off as his own, which renders him impressionable and vulnerable to mental manipulation and Sephiroth's gaslighting, because he has almost no sense of self. He knows what he's trying to be, but that's not who he actually is. When he does lead the party outside of Midgar at the end of Remake and into the start of Rebirth, Sephiroth starts toying with Cloud's emotions as soon as they get to calm, making him doubt his friends and the entire world around him, setting him up to be controlled, or, at the very least, emotionally and mentally broken, which unfortunately we see at the end of the game in the final cutscene. His mental state has deteriorated so far that at the Temple of the Ancients, he's pretty much willing to kill everyone for the Black Materia. And then when Aerith says it's a fake, his eyes turn murderous, and he accuses her of lying. He doesn't even register that Cait Sith is sacrificing himself. He only cares about the Black Materia and giving it to Sephiroth. He becomes so crazy when he's chasing Aerith for it that he goes through multiple emotions within seconds. He's laughing, he's crying, he gets angry at her, and then when he's giving it back to Sephiroth, he turns back into a child looking for praise. It shows his mental degradation and showing his willingness to betray the party with only the slightest push from Sephiroth. In that final cutscene is when the player is truly separated from Cloud's perspective, as he is seeing a hallucination of Aerith and conversing with it, that we, as the audience, cannot see. So not only is Cloud now disconnected from the world around him and his friends who are trying to help him, he is also disconnected from the player, revoking his protagonist status. In fact, I believe the main mission of the game's story was to distance Cloud from the player, making us question him at every turn as the game progressed, until we hit the climax where Aerith's death severs our connection to Cloud. Sephiroth finally succeeding in completely isolating Cloud from the world, the party, and even us, making him live in a fantasy world made up in his head where he is the hero, only for everyone else to see the world as it is, and struggling to move on past Aerith's death. To move back to the original Final Fantasy VII for a moment of comparison, when Aerith died in that game, Cloud accepted Aerith's death as his own failure, which does hurt him mentally, and eventually he does become catatonic when he recalls that he was using Zack's memories instead of his own, until he falls into the Lifestream with Tifa and recovers his mental. However, in that game, Sephiroth's control of him was more from a weak will rather than a weak mind. But also the Jenova cells within his body, which Sephiroth has control over, makes him more able to be Sephiroth's puppet. That being said, in the original game, I don't think his mind was ever truly broken, besides the Zack memory debacle. Whereas in Rebirth, he is mentally destroyed due to Sephiroth's machinations. So unlike his OG counterpart, I don't believe Rebirth's Cloud will be able to recover, and we might need a new protagonist going forward. Now, there are a few good candidates that I believe could be the protagonist of the final game. The first one being Aerith herself. The real centerpiece of the remake trilogy. Aerith as a Cetra with a strong connection to the Lifestream understands what's happening to the world during Remake and Rebirth, and is actively taking steps to mitigate the damage. You could say that she's a dual protagonist with Cloud already. In Remake and in Rebirth they share much of the screen time, and she is actively trying to push the party in a certain direction. She even gets strong enough in her connection to the Lifestream to summon her own White Whispers to counteract Sephiroth's Dark Whispers. There is one big hole in this theory, however, and that hole is in her chest. I believe her physical body did truly die at the end of Rebirth, which I think was her plan all along so she could strengthen her connection to the Lifestream and help the planet battle Sephiroth. But it kinda does take her out of the running. Now, my next theoried protagonist is Zack Fair, the true hero. I think the developers wanted Zack to be a big part in the trilogy, and while he was important in Rebirth's story, he didn't actually get that much screen time until the later half of the game, with all the multiple timeline and world shenanigans. But I believe at the end of Rebirth, the church he wakes up in is actually the church from the main FF7 world, which Aerith probably sent him to so that he could help the party and hopefully help Cloud. I think Zack makes the most sense. He has a strong connection to Sephiroth and Aerith, has connections to Tifa, Yuffie, and is even aware of Vincent's existence thanks to Crisis Core Reunion being canon. And also the fact that his solo game is called Crisis Core Reunion. He already has a playable moveset that is different from Cloud with different skills and mechanics. He's also very formidable as he's fought and beaten another first-class soldier in Angeal who had Jenova cells. He's beaten Genesis multiple times, and he even almost 1v1 Sephiroth. And then when Hojo loaded him up with Jenova cells, he became even stronger, being able to beat Genesis's god form? And while he may play the goofball, he's an experienced fighter and tactician with a heart of gold. I do think his personality could even help the party move on from Aerith's death and help soften the blow of Cloud's eventual betrayal. And my final pick is a bit of a crackpot theory, but I think it could be Sephiroth himself. We know that there are multiple worlds and multiple Sephiroths running around causing havoc, but there is one version of Sephiroth that we have seen who really hasn't done anything. And that is the Sephiroth at the end of Remake. We see him at the edge of creation, but he doesn't seem to try and manipulate Cloud. He even offers to help him, and after their brief clash, he gives Cloud some advice. I believe this is a future version of Sephiroth, one who wants to stop his past self. He says that he's on the edge of creation, but that could mean the beginning, but also the end. Him being the last being alive, finally recovered from his madness, and is now trying to be the hero he spent his whole life becoming. Zack is playable in Rebirth. You know who else is playable in Rebirth? Sephiroth. Zack has a unique moveset in Rebirth. You know who else has a unique moveset? Sephiroth. The twist of him becoming the hero to beat the corrupted Cloud would be amazing. He might be a little OP, and it might be a bit of a reach, but I really do think it could work. And that's the end of the theory, guys. Leave down in the comments who you would like to see as the protagonist of the final game, or any other crackpot theories you have for the trilogy. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you guys keep on thinking.